welcome. Welcome.
Hello, ladies, Kristen and
Hello.
Ashley. I am not going to give you death by PowerPoint. Definitely not. It's not my style. So I'll start with introducing myself. My first name is Ibukun, and an easy way to pronounce it, the French go merci beaucoup, put E in front of beaucoup, Ibukun. That's my first name. I had to find a way to introduce myself because some people ended up calling me Ivy and other such names. My name is Ibukun. So I'm a business coach, and my business is called Power and Clarity Coaching. And in terms of my background, I have worked two different careers in my life. I have been a chemical engineer, and as part of my coaching business, I also do procurement. So I'm a procurement specialist as well. So yeah, I am here because Crystal was so lovely. I met you in your Message Matters, right? In your Message Matters challenge. Um, Crystal offered her stages, if you will, and there's a whole thing we can talk to you about stages, but it's pretty much going on to someone else's stage, telling their stage what you do. So being you lovely ladies, Kristen and Ashley, and use that, if you will, to gain, if you will, exposure. It's a very effective strategy as Crystal is coming on my stage next month as well. And in that sense, it's good exposure for both of us, if you will. So let me tell you a story. And hopefully, it's one that would excite you, not bore you. I've never asked you this, Crystal. Where are you? What state are you in the US?
I am in Michigan, so it's Ashley, and Kristen is in New Orleans. Did I get that right? I mean Louisiana, not just no. I got it. I got it. Same.
Oh,
I'm
good.
good.
Brilliant. I don't think I have a reference for something in my story with regards to where you ladies are at. I have one for New York. For you can tell from my accent, I am not based in the States. It's about 10:30 p.m. almost here in the UK. And I've lived in the UK most of my life. I was born in the UK, and my origin is Nigerian. My parents are nomads. They've lived around the world, and you might hear a twang. It's definitely not American, it's Canadian. That's where they are now. Yeah. So, my story 3 years ago, I had a mini meltdown. I know mental health is a very highly, um, rated topic as it should be right now because I think we as a human race are coming to acknowledge the importance of mental health. And it was a proper mini breakdown. I was on the M25. It's a highway here in the UK. It's notorious. It's literally a circular route around London. It's similar to the I-95 in New York with regards to traffic. And I had been on the M25 for 3 hours. I was in tears. It was almost 7 p.m., and I had left my house at 6 a.m. in the morning. I worked a high pressure job that was an hour's drive away from home. And here I was 3 hours into trying to get back home, and I was stuck in traffic. I was full on ugly crying, like snot down my face, calling my husband. The person in the car over must have thought she's lost it. And I had. I had lost it because it wasn't the first time I found myself in that position. I was doing a job I am very good at, which is procurement. I was working in a pharmaceutical company at that point in time, and I was tired. I was tired of giving of my time, of myself, my mental capacity to get ahead, and I was going nowhere fast. Literally, I was stuck in the traffic, and at work, it just wasn't getting me to what I thought was my next place. Now, I was good at what I did. really good at it, but it wasn't what I loved. It wasn't my passion. It wasn't what I woke up thinking about with joy. I definitely thought about it, but it wasn't with joy. And in that sense, while speaking to my husband, I said I had had enough and I was going to leave. And he asked me a question. He said, "So what are you going to do?" I was stumped. It's one of those times when you realize you talk the talk, but when the question is put back to you, like, actually, I've not thought of what I will do if I leave my job. So I made a decision. I like to call them quality decisions, to pretty much go after my passion. And my passion is actually chilies. So a chili pepper, yeah, I know Crystal, like, huh? It is chilies. I love chilies. I love the mild all the way to the scorching hot. And I thought, okay, I'm going to chase my passion. I'm going to actually make chili products because I, as a consumer, can never find the right heat level at any point in time, depending on what I want to eat. So I stopped that job, went into chili production, and in the past 2 years, I have grown my business really fully driven by my passion, which is chili products. Alongside of that, I realized, because of a coaching course I had the opportunity to go on, that I'm actually not bad at coaching people. And since then, I've been a business coach. So I've coached several business owners through their day to day coaching. But for me, if you will, my niche is helping people identify their passion and turning that into profit. So, beginning of this year, I'm like, I need to start taking this seriously. So, I launched a challenge. It's a live challenge where for 5 days straight, for 1 hour at a time, live in Facebook. I hear someone spoke about Facebook. Live in Facebook, I pretty much take the people that sign up through what is your passion, fully identify their passion in day one, and by the end of day five, they have the tools to pretty much set up their products or service to sell to their ideal clients. That's what I do. So, in terms of the challenge, I have another one starting next week, Monday, the 22nd, at 7 p.m. UK time, which is roughly, I think you guys have gone ahead, right? You've changed clocks. Okay, so that's about four. I'm getting it all mixed up. I think I wrote it down. Yeah, 3 p.m. your time, 3 p.m. Eastern, and yeah, the challenge itself is a paid challenge because I realize I do not have time for free challenges in terms of the aggravation that comes with a free challenge. They definitely have their place. I hasten to add. But in terms of what I am building right now, I do paid challenges. And I have a limited offer, which I told Crystal I would offer to you. Anyone who signs up within the next 4 days, as long as you're part of the first 30 to sign up, you get a free backstage pass where you can have pretty much one-on-one coaching as opposed to a group coaching session with me. So I am open to questions. There's a whole lot I can tell you, but I am very mindful of time. And I know, Crystal, you said I can have as much, but with the two ladies here, they pretty much have the opportunity to just ask me questions one on one. Yeah. Oh, okay.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing your story. It was super, super interesting and really, really cool. I really like how you literally took something that you are passionate about and was able to not only produce launch your business, but able to help other people launch theirs as well. We're kindred spirits on the other side of the country, clearly,
Good.
because I do a similar thing as well.
Mm,
I coach new and aspiring entrepreneurs, specifically um, female entrepreneurs who
mm,
are at that very place in their journey. For they've gotten the bug. They know that they have gotten the tap on the shoulder that says you're supposed to start a business, but they just don't even know where to go after that, or they've already launched and are at a stuck place of knowing what to do next, because that
Mm.
often happens. We get excited, we get the website, we launch the business, and then we're like, oh shit.
Yep. It
What do I
becomes
do
real.
now?
It becomes,
Okay, I told
yeah.
people this is what I do. What do I do now? So I help them with that.
Yeah.
Um, and so I definitely resonate with what you have to offer. And it's so interesting that we are so in line with one another, because as I mentioned earlier, I'm doing a saturated market clubhouse tonight. And some people may say, well, someone else is already doing what you do. But yeah, she's in the UK. I'm in the US. That's already a difference. So there is room for me in the US and room
Ooh,
for her in the UK, because we're in two different time zones anyways. So
yeah.
I think that, it's really awesome just to hear you tell your story and how you got started um in doing what you're doing. Um, I really would love to know more about your chili products personally, because I think that's just a cool like what chilies? Because
I
at first
know
I
when she said,
thought you
I
was
was like,
talking
wait,
about the
what?
restaurant. At first I thought you were talking about the restaurant. I was like, wait, so you really like chilies like that?
Yes,
I thought you were
yes, yes,
talking about the
yes.
restaurant, but you meant
That is
the
the love
actual
story.
the plant, the vegetable. I was like, oh, we're talking real chili.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I would like to ask you, as a fellow passion business coach, if you
Yes.
will, how did my story come across to you?
It came across very genuine and authentic. I'll have to say that. It didn't it really resonated, like the idea of working all day. I worked in corporate too for about 6 years before I switched to education career, and now entrepreneurship is also a hat that I wear. But I resonated with the idea of working all day, being exhausted, not really being fulfilled in your job, then sitting in traffic, you know I had to go to night classes after a job, and it's just like the gruelingness of the day, and how much lighter you feel when you're actually operating in your gift and in your calling.
Hmm.
Your day to day doesn't feel as stressful, and in fact, even though you may be working in your business, it doesn't feel like work, because you're doing something that you actually love to do and you're really passionate about. So I resonated with the whole thing. I was like, child, been there, sitting in the traffic, just ready to pull over to the side of the road and have somebody just tow you home at that point, because you just don't even want to drive anymore.
You know what? Blink and let me be home, please. Yeah,
Yes.
that's the thing. The reason I asked you that question was pretty much to illustrate the subject, the importance of passion in business,
Hmm.
because I was able to convey to you. So I'm so glad you hit, if you will, all my story notes in terms of being able to tell you that and you to get that emotion for you to then resonate with it. That is the importance of passion in business, because if I'm unable to tell my story that way, you'll switch off. You'll probably glaze over and then be like, yeah, she's just another, chancer, we say here in the UK, trying to get me to give her money for something
Right.
that she's not even she's not really caring about. But this is what I teach my business clients in terms of you need to be able to tell your story, and your story originates from a place of passion, because if you're unable to convey that, you've lost most people. There are some people that will still come on, the stragglers, if you will, but they're not the people you really want to get. You of course, you can make your money and get them, but there isn't a fulfillment in the long run. So the importance of passion in business, if I go back to my title, thank you, Kristen, for engaging. That was really good. Is the fact that it does come across. We're not fools. No one is a fool out there. I totally disagree with the concept that, of course, there's always a fool, because everyone has a process in their mind to really catch on to if they're being taken for a ride or if the person is being genuine. And you want your clients to see that, if you will, genuineness from the very get go. You want them to be you. You want them to engage with you and say, yes, that was me, or that is me. And I'm telling you, I can help you. So what's the next thing you want to do? Hopefully get help. Yeah. Okay. You're all on mute if you're shouting at me. You're all on mute.
I was just gonna add real quick. One of the things that there's a lot of pressure around story and message and all of that fun stuff. I would be surprised if outside of like maybe 2 clients know my story. And I only say this to say that passion, in addition to story and message, because those are important, they show up in every single day, the way you handle people, right? How you handle your clients, how you talk to them, the things, the extra time that you take shows that you are passionate, you care about what you do. And so like, the form of business that I'm in is like the least stress of business, the kind that you don't have to go through and do all these like fundamental type things, and you can just do what you love and show up every day and do that. Like that's kind of where I'm at. But I do feel that it's necessary. I feel like I'm at that point right now, which is why we're going through a rebrand. I have branding, photo shoots coming and all this stuff, because I realize that I think that's the missing component that will take me to the next level. Because I mean, Ashley and Kristen, do you guys know my story? Do you know how I started, why I started? Do you know what I used to do?
Well, did you say that you used to work in corporate, and you were doing more like was it like marketing and administrative type of stuff ish? Kind
of. I was a business analyst in tech.
Okay, nope. So
well, no.
So to answer your question, no, I don't know.
So it's funny because I'm actually, it's very funny. I'm actually a self-taught designer. I didn't go to school for design. I didn't even know graphic design was a thing. Okay, like exactly, right? Like the problem is that if you don't know anyone who does it, you don't even know it's a possibility, you know, like unless they teach it in school, like astronauts and stuff. But like I didn't want to be an astronaut. I knew I was creative, I knew I loved business, but I didn't know there was a thing called brand strategy. I didn't know there was a thing graphic design. I didn't know any of that. And so when I went to school, I was like, I just want to do something in tech. And so I went to school, got computer information systems and business management, two degrees, 2 bachelors actually. And then I went and worked in this corporate environment, which was terrible. Whole story with that. But I think it's funny because like the whole Your Message, How We Met, Your Message Matters was this challenge that we were in. And they were stressing and they were like, record a 2-minute thing of your video. And I was like, oh man. Like, I still didn't do it, by the way. I joined the challenge really late, and then I felt like it was too late, and I saw other people doing it, and I was like, I'm gonna do that. I promise I'm gonna do it. And then it never got done.
It never happened.
Yeah, it never happened. But I definitely identify as something that I need to share, especially like on my Instagram and stuff. Like so many of my clients don't even know. The only reasons that some do know is because I've had to relate to where they are in their like life cycle of business through my own story. Because a lot of times, which is why I think your story is really important, each and every one of your stories. And I think for you, Kristen, where the individuality piece comes in the, you know, the talk you're doing tonight, that is truly how you are unique, right? No one's been through what you've been through and exactly how you've been through it. And so like how you tell your story and how in which you help your clients is derived off of your experience and what you've been through, and also what you've watched other people go through. So if you're able to, you know, provide insight and showcase who you are, because a lot of times we think like personality and tone and the way you talk, but like the way that I help clients is because of kind of where I've been, right? I literally get posts all the time. You guys say like, how do you know? You got a camera in my office? People ask me that all the time. It's like, no, because I've been exactly where you are. Exactly where you are. And I'm going to be there again in the future. Like, it's just a cycle when it comes to business. It's just hitting a different level, right? It's just hitting a different benchmark. So it's important, but I also feel like to relieve the stress, it's going to show up, right? Especially if you're passionate about what it is that you do, it's going to show up. Like your story is going to be apparent. They may not know the details, but they know like why you're in it and that you're here and you're going to show up every day.
It is interwoven now. I totally agree with you, Crystal, in the way you work. The reason I do that now, after learning how, is because it's for me my lead generation. Because I personally want to work with people that I can help, and I can help them through my own experience, which is why sharing my story helps them identify with me, number one. Number two, it helps them see themselves clearly. So, one of the pivotal questions that happened that I asked was, what will you do? That myself. Because a lot of people know they don't want to do something, but they don't know what they do want to do, right? So in that sense, that is why your story you can use to incorporate certain things that you want your potential clients to start thinking through, and then say, she said it, so she must be the one to help me. And that's what will set you apart as well,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right?
And I also wanted to since both of you went through the same challenge, what are some, I guess, tips on crafting your story? In a sense that, we all, some of our stories are pretty long, right? And you're like, oh,
Mhm,
okay,
mhm.
get to the point. you know,
Exactly. Exactly.
um,
Yeah.
without kind of like talking people into a circle. How do you decide what points or of the story to share that most people can or will resonate with? Because like, I definitely resonate with the corporate rat race kind of struggle thing. Like, hated sitting in the cubicle all day. Loved my coworkers, right? Great
Mm,
people, cool people, still friends with many of them. But sitting in the great cubicle every day was just not my thing.
mm,
um couldn't do it. It just didn't feel like I went home and had done anything. And some people say, well, that's cool, you got to check. So why? But I just personally had a desire to have a feeling or sensation when I left work every day of accomplishment. And even though I
mm.
was helping people, I didn't feel like I was doing anything. So, you know.
I get that, and I'll answer your question. And it's for me, it was given freely to me. I will also give freely to you. And there was this gentleman on the challenge that I met Crystal on, called, his name is Pat Quinn. And he is an amazing storyteller. Amazing. His credentials are, the big names come to him when they want to put together a speech, or they're going to a talk show to talk about something they're doing. And he pretty much helps them frame what they say. And what he gave, which led to the 2 minute your story challenge that Crystal should do, I must encourage you to do, was a 3 act framework. So any movie that you remember that resonated with you, that you loved, is told in 3 acts. Act one for us is the problem. What was the problem? What was it that wasn't that good in your career, in your life, in your relationship, dependent on the type of service you're offering? So that's act one. What was the problem? And if you can break down that 1 act into 3 main things. So, for example, I said 3 years ago I had a mini meltdown. That was one thing. The second thing was I was stuck in traffic. I was losing it. I'd been in the car for 3 hours. Then the third thing was I was calling my husband to do the complaining thing we all do, saying I have had enough. Had no idea what I'd had enough of to go to, but you get what I'm saying. Those were the 3 things I did in that first act. Then there is a pivot. So he calls it the pivot. The one thing that happened that changed you. And it was my husband asking the question, so what will you do?
Mm.
I then said to myself, which was part of my narrative, what will I do? I then continued with, I decided to turn to my passion and turn it into a business. Then I told you my passion is chili. So I'm now moving into the third act, which is, if you will, the final part of the story. And what he advised is that third act should be three things that pretty much address the three things in your first act. So it makes it all well-rounded. So you have your three problems or three situations, then you have the pivot, what changed, then the third and final act addresses them one by one, and you pretty much finish with something like I did. Now I help other people to do this, right? And that all together, his challenge was try and do all that in 2 minutes. So people don't feel, oh God, it's going on forever. I don't know where the M25 is. You know, I tried to figure out if there was a highway in any of your states that I could relate it to, but I didn't have to because you got the feeling, frustration. That was the first act, pure frustration. The pivot was I had to do something. And then the end result was I did. And this is why I can sit in front of you and offer you the same thing as well. So, very important, very important.
Thank you for sharing that. I took notes, so I definitely will work on that.
You're
This is
welcome.
definitely something I've been wanting to try to condense because,
Mm.
you know, it's a lot of moving parts sometimes to the story, but how do I focus on the main things that will resonate with people without getting into the
Mm.
weeds of it?
Mm. And I think your potential clients will appreciate you for it because don't you just hate a funnel you click on and you're there an hour later wondering what exactly is this person talking about? I yeah. I personally hate long funnels. I've just spent the weekend, I was telling Crystal, building my funnel. And that was because I was taking things out because I didn't want to read what the framework they had given me was. I wanted it to be concise, tell you what is different about me, and then it's up to you. And I think that's why people make stories long because they are scared if they miss something out, you just wouldn't resonate with them. But most of us resonate with less, not more.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Ashley has a question in the chat. It says, what are
Oh,
your different methods you use to share your story and how consistent are you in sharing it?
And she kind of
oh,
answered what the first part, kind of giving kind of a breakdown. But if there's another way in which you know, do
you
that.
can do it. Okay. So I will start off by actually answering the second question. I change it up all the time because a lot happens to me. A lot happened to me in my in that job that pretty much pushed me to change. And in terms of the different methods I use, I tend to stay true to the core of that framework now. But I also just like if you will, I was able to elaborate more by asking Kristen a question. I asked an open-ended question that helped me by she gave me information about herself, if she might not have noticed, that made me then pretty much do more with telling my story. Yeah. So the different ways you can ask your audience a question. You can also change up, if you will, the story. Still a true story, of course, but to get, if you will, them to see a different perspective as well.
And then do you find that you have to often share it? Like, obviously, there's going to have to be some consistency with sharing your story so that people know you.
Yeah. Mm.
But there's like two people that I followed. One that I stopped following because it was like the story was the same thing, right? Like it was like the one thing that grabbed me in the beginning, and she harps on that so much that you know it lost me. And she still has a huge following, but how do you being able to share on your social media platforms or
Mm.
I think it's easier when you're able to talk to people, right? When you're able to ask those open-ended questions and then get some information to help inform how you might re-strategize sharing.
Mm.
But when you don't have that connection, you're not with them on the phone or virtually. How are you able to keep the story fresh and consistent and stay connected with your audience?
So like I said, I have many stories which I can share that would still, if you will, deliver the same core message of myself, but also of others as well. So I effectively can give you a client testimonial by telling a story, obviously not divulging any personal details, but still get my core point across. Frustration, a pivot, and change. So if you will, should I try and tell you another story and then let me know if it stays fresh? Okay. All right. So I had a client once and she was about to be made redundant. She was about to be laid off, if you will, in converting that to American English. She was about to be laid off. And she came to me and said, I have worked in this job for 23 years. I love my team. I have led the team for 5 years. They love me. I actually had to make them redundant, and because I am also redundant as well. And I'm fine with that, but I have no idea of what I'm going to do next because I'm still quite young. I can take the money and go on holiday for a year, but I still want to work. She came to me with this problem. And what I said to her is, if there's anything you could do for free, what would it be? She said, I've never thought about that. I think I could start my own art business. What would you do? She does stained glass. I don't know if you're familiar with stained glass. It's beautiful, dependent on how you use it. I said, that's something that it sounds like something I would buy. Why haven't you done it yet? And she said, because I do it for fun. I don't think anyone would pay me for that. I'm like, okay, have you been to a cathedral? Who paid them for that? She decided that day to start her art business. She has made 5 figures, going into 6 figures, going hopefully into 7 figures soon. And that started with her looking at herself and asking herself, what would she do for free? Is that fresh, Ashley? Yeah? It's still the same structure. What was the problem? What was the pivot? And I was able to incorporate in there. The pivot was she met me. Am I not wonderful? That sort of thing. She met me. And as a result, she was able to turn the frustration into something brilliant.
So that definitely makes sense. And as you were talking, I'm thinking about like how I can do a better job of sharing my story. I think when I first started my business, that was one thing that I did a lot more of. And so I grew pretty quickly. I had clients pretty quickly. And then once I got married and then got pregnant, like soon after that, I kind of like stopped doing stuff and I kind of lost like how to share that because also my story changed, right? So, and I have not done a really good job of like sharing what that change looks like or what I've gone through. So I think that's something that I need to tap into that I think in terms of
definitely for Ashley, especially for you, because like I don't think you were on the call yet, but I was like, Ashley's always a few minutes late. She got a newborn. I was like, she was here literally the next week after she had a newborn. Like her win was had a baby. That's your story, baby. Like it's continuing. Like you're a monster. Like you're a force to be reckoned with, and you need to like own that because you still show up consistently.
I can help you write your story just from the little I know, Ashley, in terms of determination, because that's what I immediately got when I heard that. Wow, she's determined for her business to be a success. So even with a baby, 1 week old, she came on and showed up. So we all have a story. We all have a story to tell. It's actually a tagline for my podcast as well. So someone was mentioning something about a podcast. Yeah.
Kristen.
Yeah.
Was it Kristen?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I have a podcast, nothing to do with business coaching. Nothing at all. I'm a collector of life stories. For some reason, people just tell me their life story. It wasn't something I was happy about, I must say. Then I realized actually it wasn't for me, it was for them. They needed to get it off their chest. I'm not a therapist or anything, but in them getting it off their chest, it actually was therapeutic for them. So I started recording it with their permission, of course. And that's what my podcast is about. It's called Speak with Ibukun. But yeah, you need to understand you have a story, tell it. You be the narrator of your own story and use it for whatever it is you're doing as a business.
Love it.
I think one problem that we have with telling our stories, sometimes it sounds almost like a brag or something. So we don't want to tell our struggle story,
Mm,
because either it won't we feel like it won't resonate, or people will just be like, she just lying, talking about how she launched her business, she was homeless in a car. Like, because some people's stories are pretty, and that's the other thing too, we're comparing our story with other people's, and we're like, I ain't had them struggles, I wasn't homeless in a car. Is my story really like a good story to tell? Like, are people
mhm,
going to hear my story and be like, wow, that's amazing? Like, because you hear other people's story and you're like, dang, that's deep. That was a lot you had to overcome. But
mm,
the truth of the matter is, we all have had something we've had to overcome. I'm like just getting to the point where I want to share other parts of my story of
mm,
my life, because for a long time, um I just was conflicted about it, because I didn't want sympathy or pity from anyone
mhm,
about some of the things that I've had to overcome. So I shied away from it. But recently I had a photo shoot, and one of the pictures, I had my arms up in the air like I'm celebrating, and my shirt was up and you could see my stomach, which I never exposed my stomach, because not because I got a fupa because I'm a mama, but also I have a scar on my stomach from surgery that I had. And
mm, mm,
it's keloid, and I've actually just today had to have some more injections in the site to kind of flatten the scars out. And so I
mm,
noticed that in that moment, I was so carefree and wasn't even thinking about my stomach being exposed, that
mm,
I was like, oh snap, my stomach is out on this picture. And part of me wanted to be like, I'm not going to use those pictures. But then the
mm,
other part of me was like, well, this is an opportunity to share this other part of your story,
mm,
um, and who you are and what you've been through, so people can know, someone, your story sometimes is not for you, it's for other people. So, um, I've just decided to embrace the fact that I was out there with my scar out, rocking out with my scar out, and
Go, 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 girl, I
tell
think
the
is the
story of how it
expression. Go,
happened and
girl.
what it was, because it may say
Yeah.
it may save somebody's life. What I actually been through might actually save someone's life, and then it may give someone else confidence or motivation to just keep going, even though we all get scars. Some scars are physical and some are internal, but we all end up with scars in life.
Now, like Preston, you pretty much came full circle to answer what you said in the beginning, because yes, some people would definitely say, "Oh, she's either made it up or she is bragging," but there is someone out there who needs to hear that story, and they wouldn't judge based on their preconceived ideas of what your story should be. No one knows the walk you've walked. No one can wear your shoes, but someone could like the color.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So don't ever feel self conscious. Your story is your story. If you don't like it, I'm not for you. God bless you. See you next time. But someone out there needs to hear your story. I've taken a lot of time, Crystal. So it's totally up to you.
Yeah, I do have a call in just a few minutes here, so I want to get the action items from Kristen and Ashley real quick.
Okay.
I'm getting messages too. Do you guys have any follow up questions? I think we might, cause we're supposed to do the grab your bag challenge, but I think it'd be a good idea to also do like have you guys record your stories as well, and we can share
I
them
was
with.
just about to say that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm gonna work on my story.
Yeah, yeah,
And
exactly.
I like the parameters of the 2 minutes. Like, how do I get this out in 2 minutes? So I like that.
Exactly.
Even though, I mean, I don't know if you realize this, but in the actual challenge, everyone's was longer than 2 minutes.
Not everyone.
The ones I watched. Now I watched them after, so maybe it was the people who were really struggling. So like,
Exactly.
I didn't come until like day 4, and that was literally the
Ah.
only day I came. But I'm still in the Facebook group, which I think they archived it now. But
Yeah, and it's still hanging around somewhere in the ether. But
Mhm.
yes, I was very impressed because I thought no way can my story be under 2 minutes. But I followed literally 1, 2, 3 points in the first step, pivot, then 1, 2, 3 to address it. And I was able to at crazy o'clock, very fast. I was able to say it and get it across. So try it. Try it and see.
Beautiful.
Okay. And it was lovely meeting you, ladies. If there is someone you know struggling to actually identify their passion, tell them about the challenge. My website is powerinclaritycoaching.com.
Okay, make sure to send it to me, and I'll make sure we share it in the group as well.
Absolutely.
And you can also put it in the chat too for the two ladies here. But while we're doing that, Ashley, what's your action items this week?